Two of the most credible names in security looked at the exact same Microsoft Teams flaws this spring. Microsoft rated it critical, 9.6. The US government's own vulnerability database score named the same flaw a 6.5. Medium. Same vulnerability, two authorities, a 3-point gap. And for a bank, a credit union, or a mortgage company, that gap is not a footnote. It is the most useful thing in the whole disclosure because it tells you exactly where in Teams your real risk has been hiding. Start with where Teams actually sits in your institution. It runs the all hands town hall. It runs the member or borrower webinar. It runs the underwriting huddle and the day-to-day chat that moves a loan from application to close. When a flaw shows up in that surface, it's not an abstract IT footnote. It touches the place your institution communicates. In its May 2026 security updates, Microsoft addressed this Teams event portal flaw. The CVE is in the description. The official wording is precise, and the precision matters. Improper authorization in Microsoft Teams that allows an authorized attacker to disclose the information over a network. The component is the Teams event portal, the surface behind live events, town halls, and webinars. And here is what nobody put in the headline. There is not remote code execution. It is not a spoofing flaw. It does not let an anonymous stranger on the internet take over your Teams. Naming it accurately is not splitting hairs because the board that hears critical Teams flaw and pictures a remote takeover will spend its attention in exactly the wrong place. So let's talk about the score gap because it is the part that builds your confidence in the analysis rather than denting it. Microsoft, acting as the official numbering authority for its own products, scored this flaw a 9.6 and called it critical. The National Vulnerability Database, run by NIST, independently scored the same vulnerability a 6.5 and called it medium. Two credible bodies, one flaw, a 3-point spread. An auditor or a CISO, your Chief Information Security Officer, who looks this up will see both numbers. So it's far better to explain the gap than to pretend the higher score is the only one that exists. The whole difference comes down to a single dimension in the scoring system called scope. The CVSS, the Common Vulnerability Scoring System, is the 0 to 10 sensitivity scale. Scope describes whether a flaw stays inside the component that contains it, or whether it lets the consequences spill over into a different security authority. Microsoft assessed the scope as changed, meaning the impact can cross a secondary boundary, and it judged that integrity, not just confidentiality, could be affected. The national database assessed the scope as unchanged and integrity as untouched. Same flaw, different judgment about how far the blast radius reaches. For a regulated institution, the cross-boundary reading is the one to take seriously, precisely because that is the category of risk that multi-tenant collaboration creates. The lesson is not that the higher score is inflated. The lesson is that Microsoft is telling you this flaw lives in the cross-boundary part of Teams, the part that deserves your standing attention. Now, who can actually exploit this and who cannot? The scoring vector answers it directly. The privilege required value is low, which means an attacker cannot reach this as an anonymous outsider. They need an account that already holds some authorization. The entry ticket is a legitimate identity. That detail does not make the flaw harmless. It reframes it. And the honest framing is the sharper one for a bank, a credit union, or a mortgage company. Financial services is among the most heavily phished industries on earth. Credential theft against your staff is constant, not occasional. So the practical exposure is not anyone on the internet can read our data. It is an attacker who phishes one of our logins, now holds the authorized foothold this flaw assumes. One marketing coordinator who helps run member webinars clicks one convincing invoice phish, and that stolen identity is the key. And one more thing stated plainly, because this is good news. As of late June 2026, this flaw is not reported as exploited in the wild, and it is not on the federal known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. This is a patch and a governed story, not a breach story. But the underlying weakness, an authorized account reaching across a boundary it should never cross, is a reoccurring pattern in collaboration platforms, not a one-time event. So this week, the short list is simple, and it is exactly what an examiner expects you to be able to show. Microsoft addressed this in its May 2026 service updates. So keep your teams, clients, and service current. And then actually confirm your managed devices are on the patched versions instead of assuming it. It is in the cloud, so it is handled, is not evidence an auditor accepts. Then the move that pays off long after this one flaw is forgotten. Govern how Teams talks to the world outside your tenant. Scope external access by organizations you actually do business with. Review guest accounts and keep them least privileged. Put conditional access and multi-factor authentication, your MFA, on external interaction. Apply Microsoft Purview data protection to your collaboration content. Keep clients current and provable through the Microsoft Intune. And monitor your anomalous access with Microsoft Defender for Clouds apps. Here's what we do at ABT. We are a Tier 1 Microsoft solution provider. We manage Microsoft 365 for more than 750 banks, credit unions, and mortgage companies. And one precise word, because auditors notice: we do not host your Microsoft 365. Microsoft hosts the infrastructure. We manage the tenant. Through an operating model called Guardian, we configure the team's external and guest posture, enforce the access and data protection policies, and watch the tenant against more than 160 Microsoft Secure Score controls. So a single information disclosure flaw in one governed event with a known blast radius, not a question nobody can answer. So if nobody at your institution can say for certain how your team's external and guest access is configured right now, that is a conversation to have this week. Talk to a Microsoft 365 specialist at ABT, and we will map how Teams talks to the world outside your tenant and what it takes to keep it examiner ready. The full breakdown with the side-by-side score table and the 6-point governance checklist is linked below. I'm Justin Kirsch. See you in the next one.